Welcome, everyone, to the Metal Pit. With me today is a very special guest. This is a guy who really needs no introduction. With 30 plus years behind the kit for one of the OG death metal bands, he has 11 studio albums to his name, along with countless tours that have taken him to every corner of the earth. In fact, you might have seen him most recently on their tour with Amon Amarth, Carcass, and Cattle Decap. With me today is the one and only Donald Tardy of Obituary. Welcome to the
How's it
Metal
going,
Pit,
Jason?
Donald.
How you
Doing
guys?
good.
How you guys doing? Everyone good?
We're doing good down here in Canada. Thanks, man. Not as good as you. I can see that
Yeah,
that background there. You got some gardens, shit growing
yeah.
there.
It. We're in Florida, so you gotta bear with me with this terrible weather that we're having.
A little bit jealous. A little bit jealous. So right off the bat, I got to say congrats on that killer Amon Amarth tour this past fall. I had a chance to catch it in Toronto at a really cool venue called History, which I think, believe it or not, Drake owns. With such an incredible lineup, and I think it sold out a lot of the stops on that tour. Did it not?
Yeah, it did, and we were very fortunate, very lucky to be on that tour because Amon Amarth is just monsters right now, man. They're pulling in a lot of crowds, and
Oh yeah,
that was just a great tour for us to be, trying to promote the new album. So it was a calculated but very lucky decision that we made.
yeah, absolutely. Kind of perfect timing with the release of the new album. Um, I'm sure you gained a lot of new fans from that as well, because I imagine, I know there's some people obviously who listen to Animal on Earth that listen to Obituary. I'm sure there was a lot of people that may not be so familiar with Obituary. Did you find that to be the case, that you were meeting some people that are gaining new fans at all?
Yeah, I mean, and again, it goes back to it's a calculated decision when Obituary is going to pick a set list, pick a tour, know what fans you're going to be in front of, and you got to bring it, and you got to kind of cater to that, and you hope that you grab some new fans with new eyeballs watching you every night.
Yeah,
So with that set list and knowing that we had the new album, we were pushing the new album, but we were also trying to play some of them songs that maybe non-Florida death metal people they don't really maybe realize the kind of groove that Obituary has. So we we dug into the meat and potatoes and really brought some of the songs we know we'll hopefully draw some new fans, and then of course playing the some of the new songs.
awesome. And hot off the heels from that tour, you'll soon embark on spring tour with Immolation and Blood Incantation. What can fans expect with that stacked lineup? More of the same that they saw on the Amon Amarth tour, or even more?
Finally, Obituary has a headline tour because we've been a headline band for 25 years, and we were many tours. We were always playing last, and in the late 90s playing headlining, and to have a few opportunities, really good opportunities, with the Black Label Society tours that we did in America. Then we went out with Creator in America. We went out with Cannibal in America. Then we were lucky enough to do Amon Amarth, and so finally, it's been years. It's been years since Obituaries had the luxury and opportunity to actually do a headline tour, and we're really looking forward to it. And what great bands, man! To have Immolation, on the bill. I mean, old, really long time friends with those guys, and then to have Blood Incantation and Ingrown is just just adds fuel to the fire. It's going to be pretty brutal, and
Yeah,
really looking forward to it.
yeah, I can say the same thing. Very much looking forward to seeing that stop in Toronto. Speaking of doing this thing for a long time, I go way back with you guys. I saw you guys the very first time. I think it was '90 when you were touring with Sepultura and Sadus.
Wow.
Yeah, you came to Canada, but Sepultura didn't make it across. You ended up playing with a band from Toronto called Overthrow, who filled in. But yeah, that was a long damn time ago. So
Yeah.
what? Yeah, so long ago. So I just want to say that I go back. I think I was 16 when I first heard Slowly We Rot, and I can remember taking a cross-border trip with my mom and sister from Canada to Michigan, just to pick up metal that you couldn't get in Canada because it was kind of scarce here. So we were at a Sam Goodies in Port Huron, Michigan, and I remember picking up Slowly We Rot. Never heard you guys before, just picked it up based on the album cover. Might have read about you in the zines and stuff. Um, And I remember that drive back, throwing that in the cassette in my Walkman and just being scared shitless. Like, what the hell was I listening to? I wasn't acclimated with death metal at the time. So I ended up getting home and I remember putting the cassette away. I'm like, this is too much for me. Just too insane. My brain can't handle it. But of course, that didn't last very long. Pulled it out. And then next thing you know, you guys end up being, my new Metallica, so to speak, the godlike band in my life. So I just wanted to ask you, um, what was it like those early days? Like, as far as like trying to convince people like me that maybe death metal was the next big thing, or that we should take a chance on death metal. Were there any barriers to entry at the time, where you found it difficult to
It
get
was
people
just,
understand?
it was just a different world. It's so long ago, and that sounds not cliche, but it does sound strange to say it that way, but it really was a different world, and it was a long time ago. That's long before social networks and internet and emails and smartphones and being on a Wi-Fi thing. So we were just kids, because I mean, I was 16. You brought up 16. I was 16 years old when I wrote Slowly We Rot. So by the time I was in the studio and recorded it, and it came out in '87 or '88, I was still only a teenager. So I didn't know what the hell the world of metal was going on. I knew the world of Florida metal, and we were right in the heart of it, and it was killer and it was fun. But I can't even put it into perspective of like what it felt like, because I just was a kid that happened to write an album of the songs I tried to write brutal.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so there was no rhyme or reason to that record, the writing of it, the recording of it. I mean, that was in the '80s, and that's pretty incredible just to even put that into thought of what the studio was like back then. It was before digital. It was before punching a bunch of tracks and fixing your parts. I had to
yeah.
play the song from start to end. And when I said, I think I did it right, we moved on, and then we started. Then you bounced the drums down into a mix, and that was it, a done deal. You didn't go back and fix bass drums at the end of the week or the end of the month. You finished the song then and there, and that's really the big difference in what the studio is like compared to digital world nowadays.
Right. Okay, cool. And that brings up another topic. Actually, my next question is, I was talking to Ross and Bob of Immolation back in November. We did an interview with them as well in Toronto. And one of the topics that came up was the kind of inconsistency with the recording of their albums over the years. Like they only really have felt that they've got the sound they've always strived for over the last couple of albums. And I thought about that in the context of Obituary. And listening back to Slowly We Rot, to me, it sounds as relevant and heavy
Yeah.
as, today. Like it could have been recorded today. Is there something about, and even the Incomplete, and I was going through every single album and I was like, man, these just all sound really sonically incredible.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys just luck out with that? Or do you think there's something specific to the Obituary sound that just lends itself to
I mean,
recording so well?
we were super lucky that we had Morrisound Studio, a state of the art. Even then, even when I was a child, I went into Morrisound Studio in 1985 and recorded an 8 album, 6 song demo for Executioner. We were just kids. I mean, literally, I was a child. But that was Morrisound Studios, and then it moved to where Morrisound was for 3 decades, and it was the most incredible. State of the art, solid state logic board, like only 6 of them in America. They had one of them, and that was early on. That was a super luxury to have those engineers, Tom and Jim Morris and Scott Burns, and the engineers that were there, and the production that they were to give us, whether we were a band that came in there sloppy, or had a shitty sounding snare drum or not. They probably would have fixed it up and tuned it up and made us practice. But anyone that has seen Obituary live, they realize that there's something about us. There's a very tight. Trevor and I and my brother have been writing music and playing on stage so long together that there are very tight parts and very specific, just killer sounding rhythms that we've been playing for so long. So we entered the studio, even though we were young. We knew what we wanted. We knew what we wanted. We were very driven on what the concept of the record was going to be, what the production, what we wanted, and we were lucky that we had dudes around us that were very knowledgeable and very experienced, and we brought them good product. And I think we do that with records. and it's not easy. You know, you brought up what Ross and what they said about it really takes a decade to until you're really happy with one of your recordings. And I'll be honest, you know, World Demise, The Incomplete, Frozen in Time, all those records, I love the production on them. I don't love my performances
Right.
on my first two albums, but that's performance. That was because I was a teenager
Yeah.
and I was pressed into, hey, hurry up, we got to do 4 songs in one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not until this last album that I'm happy with the way it feels, the way it sounds, and everything I did on drums. My expression finally came through on a record, but that's been 34 years in the making. And the 11th album, I finally am extremely happy with it, like happy. And
That's awesome.
sounds funny, but you know, it's pretty amazing that it does take that long. If you want perfection and you try, it is a tough thing to make a good sounding album. You know, the stuff that's in your mind, to get it onto tape is not always the easiest. And it took me album after album of just going, God, if I could have done that song again,
Right.
shit, you know, that kind of thing. But it's death metal. You know, we were kids. It's history. It's done. It's recorded. It's there forever. And I just, you know, I'm happy about it, and just super stoked that it is recorded and it's history now.
I hate dredging up the past so much here, but you know, sometimes those of us long in the tooth kind of live in the past. But we all know the internet, you know, downloading kind of basically destroyed physical sales. With this in mind, it's especially crazy to think about an album like, you know, The Incomplete, which, if I'm not mistaken, has been heralded as one of the top-selling death metal albums of all time. Um, Even crazier to think that just a handful of years later, you know, the whole industry would crash and burn. Now, the reception to the latest album, Dying of Everything, to my knowledge, has been, you know, overwhelmingly positive. All the reviews I've read, interviews that I've watched, which I hope is translating well as it relates to physical sales. I'm curious to know, like, if you've seen any marked improvement or recovery as it relates to physical media sales over the last few years, and if so, you know, how that might compare to those early years, where basically,
no, I mean, it will not be a surprise when you hear the answer to your question. And most people, I mean, physical album sales, meaning CD sales, just do not exist anymore. And that's obviously, there's obvious reasons. It's streaming sites, it's smartphones, and it's us listening to shit on Bluetooth and on Apple iTunes and all that crap. But we all do it. The whole world does it. So album sales don't mean anything anymore. You know, making a great album means everything, because we know everyone's going to listen to it. All people in South America, people in Canada, people in Europe, everyone that can go and, you know, the Americans, the Europeans, the Canadians can go and support their favorite bands, you know, and buy that record. And what do? You walk down to a record store and still buy an album, or you buy it online and you get it delivered to your house, and you get super stoked when you own the CD, DVD, or the vinyl or whatever it is. But physical copy sales, or you can't even compare it to what it was in 1994, because in 1994, again, you only had getting your hands on a CD, or the, you know, the album some way, cassette or vinyl. And again, no internet, no streaming sites back in the early 90s. We know that. And so it's a different world. You know, we have 0 album sales in theory when it comes to putting our heart and soul into an album. And then you look at how many CDs, let's just pick CDs, Dying of Everything, CD. How many people do you know? And if you ask them honestly, did you buy the CD, or are you listening to it on your phone? What do you think the answer is? Literally 8 out of 10 people do not buy CDs anymore. So 80% of the sales are, they're long gone. But you can't cry over spilled milk. We know that. We've been saying that forever. We can't cry over spilled beer. What do? Use the internet to talk to your fans and make it killer, and do some live streams and promote the shit out of your tours, and let them know being on tour is the way we make money. You know, show up to the show and literally buy a t-shirt. And that's literally how bands exist. And it's a very simple concept, but that is the absolute truth.
Cool. Yeah, I knew the answer, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if there would have been a marked improvement over the last few years in physical sales. So thank you for clearing that up for me.
Yeah, all good.
Switching gears a bit, you know, kind of a funny question here. I've always wondered, has there ever been a time over Obituary's 30-plus year career where you learned that someone that you would least expect to be an Obituary fan actually turns out to be a fan. Like as an example, maybe has Elon Musk or Trump, ever professed their love for Obituary? Have you had any of those kind of surreal moments?
I guess not much. I mean, we are an underground metal band, so it's not like I have a story that Tom Cruise was caught with his headphones on in New York City Park and I was listening to the Incomplete. I would never even think that, but you realize that they love Obituary. The Danko Joneses of the world. The dudes from Less Than Jake are good friends of mine, a Florida band. Totally not heavy metal or death metal at all, obviously,
Yeah.
But Chris is a good friend of mine and an Obituary fan. Other than that, I can't say that, I found out that Jimmy Page was a big Obituary fan. but
you never know. Maybe he's still in the closet.
we are an underground band, which is a good thing. You can't cry about that.
No, absolutely not. So another little fun question here. I did this with Ross and Bob of Immolation, and it kind of went over well. It usually works better if there's a couple of you around, but we'll go for it anyways. So I like to call it rapid fire. What I'm going to do is call out an Obituary album in random order, and I just want you to give me the very first thing that kind of pops into your mind. Now, this can be one word, or a sentence. It doesn't have to be about the music. It can really be about anything. Maybe it's something about that time period.
Fire away.
Yeah. All right. So first things first, Executioner's Return.
Ralph. And I will elaborate because Ralph Santalla, one of my dear friends, longtime friends, and was in Obituary for 2 albums and quite some years. And we lost him a couple years ago due to a heart attack. He died of a heart attack. But one of the most gifted guitar players I've ever witnessed, meaning sitting down in front of somebody with an electric guitar in their hand. He is the closest probably to Michael Schenker that I'll ever live and be around and see in real time him shredding. So Executioner's Return is an album that I would hope that everybody that thinks they like Obituary, if they don't know that album, is to listen to it from start to finish, knowing that Ralph was in the band for just literally a blink of an eye when it comes to the history of this band. But he put some solos down on those records, Executioner's Return and Darkest Day, that I've never witnessed before.
Very cool. Very cool. The Incomplete.
Killer. My album, if besides the new one, if an alien came down in my backyard and said, show me death metal, show me Obituary, I would grab the Incomplete real quick.
Awesome. And self-titled Obituary.
Family. Kenny and Terry are finally in the band now for going on 10 and 15 years, and
been that long, eh?
Wow. That's when we realized it was family.
Cool. World Demise.
Big Shirt. Big Shirt is a dude who I met who was COC's front of house. He was Slipknot. Slipknot stole him from us. His name's Dave Nichols. His name was Big Shirt. That's what everyone called him. Shirt, like the shirt on your back.
Yeah.
And I met him in 1992, and he toured with me. And we had such a great relationship, and he was such a phenomenal engineer that we invited him to Florida from England, from Birmingham, to come to Florida and do World Demise with Obituary and Scott Burns in the same studio together.
Awesome.
And one of my favorite albums of Obituary.
Very cool. Big Shirt in my mind.
Big Shirt.
Big Shirt. Slowly We Rock.
Number one.
Number one. There you go. Inked in Blood. Apart from really cool artwork. Wow.
Super proud because it was the first time that Obituary literally did it on our own, meaning we've had the studio now for 20 years. We've done every album for the last almost 7 albums, I think, 6 maybe, including the Ralph albums and the Tardy Brothers album. But Inked in Blood was the first one that myself and my brother took on the Pro Tools rig and the computer, and we engineered it, we recorded it, we edited it, and we mixed it without any outside help.
Cool. Awesome. And Back from the Dead. I mean, I guess it speaks volumes, maybe?
Yeah, man. Just threatening skies.
Cause of death.
Everyone's favorite, but mine.
Should we leave it at that, or you want to?
If you would like. Again, it goes back to me being only a 19-year-old kid, and my performance on that record. Some of the songs, the production's killer, and the songs are great. My performance, and that's just me being picky over 33 years of listening to it. I wish I had it to do again. Everyone's favorite, but mine.
Darkest Day.
Darkest Day. It's a dark horse. It's one that I can guarantee if people were honest, they would go, darkest what? I didn't even know that they had an album called that. So that's the dark horse. That's the one, just like that's another Ralph album. If you've never heard Ralph on an album, an Obituary, you have to literally listen to it from the beginning to the end. I mean, Ralph is gone now. So take the time. It's only a 40-minute album. Listen to it the way we did it from the first song to the way it ends.
You hear that, kids?
It's the dark horse. Nobody knows about it. And it's a heavy ass album.
Cool. Frozen in Time.
Back to One.
Back to One. And, of course, last but not least, Dying of Everything.
DOE. My favorite and Obituary's best album to date.
Cool. So everything came together. No qualms.
Couldn't do it any better. Couldn't have come out any better.
We can't end this without talking about Metal Militia, where yourself, if people don't know, where yourself and your wife take care of more than 30 colonies of homeless cats on the streets each day. We were recently featured on CNN regarding it. How's the response been to that?
Yeah, the CNN thing, it was simply just because somebody was curious and someone at my record label, blah, blah, blah. But it's something I've been doing for over 15 years. My girlfriend and I, we are super passionate about it. It's a program through the Humane Society, which I would hope that people that have homeless cat population problems in their town would try to do the same thing. And it's called Trap, Neuter, Return. And it's simply that the Humane Society has a program where you borrow the trap from them, put a little food in it. The cat walks in to grab the food. The door shuts behind it. You get it fixed. When it wakes up the next day and it's recovered, you set it free right where you trapped it. So the cat knows where he is. He can still live his life, but he's no longer, or she's no longer going to have babies. And we try to stop the population problem. Then I have a big heart. And for the last 17 years, I take care of, like you said, it's turned into about 30 something colonies, about 80 cats nowadays. A lot of them are getting older on me, but on a daily basis, before I have my dinner, I go and take care of my kids. I go check on all the colonies, leave some fresh food and water at each spot. And then that's how I responsibly monitor all the colonies and see if there's any sickness, see if there's any new cats that show up. If they do, get them TNR'd. And then and the joy it just brings me, it's pretty awesome because they're homeless, but they're not loved. They still see fresh water, food, and a good head scratch if they want it. Some of them I have never can and never will be able to touch them. But I do take care of them, and they thrive because of that, because we do take care of them.
I know how much work goes into that, and
money and work, man.
Yeah, my spouse and I have a hobby farm here where we rescue sheep and goats and cats.
Well, there you go.
Dogs, and I know it's takes up most of your day. So
the minute and hours of the day that you work doing it, I'm totally cool with that, because it is almost 3 hours of my time before I eat my dinner. I go out and I check on my colonies and put down some food and water, but it's also the money. So anybody that has a heart and would like to help the Metal Militia, I never beg, but I'll tell you that our PayPal is helpcats@obituary.cc. It's the website. So our PayPal is helpcats@obituary.cc. Anybody that wants to donate to it, it goes straight to the cat food for the feral colonies. And we spend $60 a day on just the food. So it's an expensive hobby, but we make a difference, and we make some happy kids. So we totally love it. And anyone that does donate in advance, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Donald, for your time today. Thanks for your efforts with Obituary.
Cool,
and the cats, and we'll see you on tour very soon.
Awesome, man. See you guys on tour. You know, we're coming in April and May in America and Toronto. See you in Toronto, man.
Cheers.
See you guys
Take
later.
care, man. Bye.
Yeah, peace.